Hello, Wanderer, and welcome to Relic of Stories, a channel where forgotten legends return and history is whispered, not shouted. Here, time slows, gods stir in the silence, and the past breathes again. So if you're ready to drift through lost empires, ancient mysteries, and hidden truths, then close your eyes. Take a breath and follow the voice that leads through time. Tonight, we begin with the story. There are places on Earth where time feels strange, where the wind forgets its path, and the stones seem to breathe beneath the weight of too many forgotten names. In these places, old faiths once flourished, faiths born long before temples, before scrolls, before history itself learned how to remember what the world chose to forget. They worshipped without books, without priests, without ceremony, only flame, bone, water, and sky offered to powers that may not have been gods as we understand them. These were not kind gods. Not the ones who bless harvests or listen to prayers. They were the kind who demanded silence, shadows, and the warmth of blood. Archaeologists have uncovered strange idols, buried deep beneath layers of time, carved with symbols that do not match any language we have ever recorded or spoken. One was found in Syria, shaped like a man with insect wings, another in Bolivia, with eyes carved on every inch of its body, as if to see in every direction at once. In forgotten jungles, explorers found temples with no altars, only deep wells filled with bones, surrounded by murals of faceless beings holding tongues and fire. Historians believe these faiths vanished long before written record, leaving no sacred texts, no martyrs, no relics, just silence and scattered warnings carved in stone. But some say they were erased, not forgotten, buried deliberately. Because to remember them, to speak their names again, is to invite them back. And tonight, we begin where history ends. Chapter 1, Gods That Vanished from History. Before the first scriptures were ever carved in stone, the world was already full of gods, some made of thunder, others born from silence, all long forgotten by time. They had no temples made of gold, no cathedrals echoing with choirs, only windswept altars of dirt and fire, hidden beneath starlight and soaked in animal blood. Their names have turned to dust, blown across deserts and drowned in rivers, not because they were weak, but because memory itself chose to bury them. In those forgotten days, people whispered prayers into caves, carved strange symbols into bone, and offered children's teeth to shadows they couldn't see. Before the rise of great cities, there were tribes that worshipped rivers, mountains, and beasts, and each believed they were speaking to something alive. One tribe bowed to obsidian gods that lived in volcanoes and demanded silence. Another praised the sea, leaving fish guts and feathers beside tidal pools. Fishermen once swore the ocean watched them, not like a mother, but like a god that starved, dreamed, and swallowed men for breaking unseen rules. In the jungles of Southeast Asia, explorers found temples buried under vines, filled with carvings of gods with no faces, holding fire and severed tongues. Some altars had no offerings. Only deep stone wells filled with bones, small bones, shattered and blackened, and not a single word explaining why. Locals warned not to disturb the ruins, claiming a priest who'd once vanished there, not slaughtered or exiled, just gone, their food still warm when found. In the Andes, high above the clouds, shrines were built where no army could reach, places where gods were mountains and wind carried their burning breath. Children were offered with painted faces and eyes closed forever, buried curled up beside. Obsidian knives and tiny gold figurines meant to keep gods asleep. One mummy held a charm of feathers and teeth wrapped in hide. No one knows what it was for, but the archaeologist who opened it died 6 days later. Back in Europe, deep in Denmark's peat bogs, farmers unearthed bodies so well preserved their skin still clung to bone, their hands bound, their throats sliced. Some wore flower garlands, others had wooden poles beside them. No signs of punishment, just offerings laid gently in the marsh for gods with no names. No texts mention these deities, yet they demanded blood and silence. And for centuries the earth remembered them when no one else dared to speak their name. They are now called bog gods, a name scholars gave to a mystery they cannot explain, gods who took the living and then vanished beneath the water. Across the deserts of Arabia, before Islam, Travelers spoke of wind demons and stone spirits that watched from cliffs and whispered curses into caravans. Some worshipped Al-Kappa, the keeper of silence. Others feared the one who devours the moon, who erased stars from the sky on certain cursed nights. There were wells said to speak in human voices, and anyone who answered them was never seen again, their tents still standing, their camels untouched. Even now, archaeologists find crude stone glyphs, jagged symbols chiseled into canyons no modern traveler dares visit once the sun begins to fall. And still, no scripture, no scrolls, no written record survives, only fragments of myth, half-remembered names and warnings carved into broken altars. In Indonesia, the ruins of Gunung Padang rest beneath layers of jungle and time, its stones arranged in patterns no one alive remembers how to read. Magnetic pulses come from its buried chambers, stones that hum, vibrations that disturb equipment, and locals refuse to walk near it after dark. They speak of sea gods who came with the storms, whose voices caused blindness, whose breath made fire, and whose return is foretold by rising tides. All across the ancient world, we find signs of faith without names, forgotten religions that ruled the lives of millions, but left no trace we can understand. Who were these gods? What did they demand? And why did their worship vanish so completely, as if the world itself was forced to forget them to survive? Some believe they died with their people, crushed by conquest, buried under plague and war, while others believe their followers simply walked into the dark. There are theories that gods need worship to survive, that forgotten gods fade into nothing, slowly starving from silence until even their myths collapse, who became something too dangerous for the world they once ruled with thunder and bone. But there are older stories, stories that say the forgetting was deliberate, that some gods were buried not by time, but by terrified hands in sacred haste. Gods who asked for too much, who changed too fast. We travel to the fire temples of Zoroastrianism, where flames have burned for thousands of years, and some say the gods never truly left, and so they were sealed away, not dead, but dreaming, waiting in stone, listening for the day their names are spoken again. In the next chapter, let's start with chapter 2, the flames that never died. Long before the rise of Rome, before Babylon crumbled, before the pyramids cast their final shadow, there was a fire, and that fire never went out. In the highlands of ancient Persia, where snow met desert and stars hung low, people built altars not for idols, but for flame itself, alive and watching. They believed fire was more than warmth, more than light. It was truth made visible, a force that could cleanse evil and carry the prayers of mortals into the heavens. These were the first followers of the old prophet Zoroaster, or Zarathustra, who spoke of one God, a cosmic war and a fire that must never be allowed to die. Their temples did not hold statues or gold, only sacred flames, tended day and night, passed from generation to generation like the beating heart of the world. Even now, in the fire temples of Yazd and Nefsari, the sacred flame still burns, some say for over 1,000 years, fed by oil, breath, and silence. But not all fire brings light. Some flames, remember, and in the shadows they cast, ancient truths still burn. And so, tonight, we return to the fire. High in the mountains of ancient Iran, long before Islam or even Alexander, a man stood before a flame that whispered truths older than any kingdom or crown. And he did not speak for gods of thunder or chaos, but for a singular force hidden in the fire itself. His name was Zoroaster, or in older tongue, Zarathustra. He preached of one creator, Ahura Mazda, the Lord of wisdom, and of an eternal battle between light and darkness, order and corruption, fire and ash, and flame. And so the world changed slowly, quietly, as his words took root in the earth. But his God did not ask for statues or sacrifices, only purity, thought. Followers built fire temples, Adish Barams, where the flames were not symbols, but living prayers burning without pause, guarded like a sleeping god. The oldest of these lies in Yazd, Iran, where a fire has burned for more than 1,500 years, hidden from conquerors, preserved by hands that feared forgetting. Every day, priests enter in silence, faces covered by cloth so they don't pollute the fire with breath. They feed it with sandalwood and whisper no names. For them, the fire hears, the fire remembers, and it must never be extinguished. Some scholars believe Zoroastrianism may have influenced later religions. Traces of it appear in Judaism, in Christianity, in the very idea of heaven and hell, the duality of good and evil, angels and demons, even the apocalypse. These may have first been born in Zoroaster's fire and carried through scripture like smoke. But Zoroastrianism itself was nearly erased. When Islam swept across Persia in the 7th century, its temples were destroyed, its followers scattered to mountains in silence. Some fled to India, becoming the Parsis, a small, isolated community who kept the fire burning in exile, never rebuilding their empire, only protecting its heart. In Navsari, the sacred flame of Udavada is said to have burned since the 8th century, passed down, hidden, reignited through war, famine, and colonial rule. Visitors say the air feels heavy inside, warm but still, as if something old watches from within the fire, not speaking, only listening to those who dare pray. There are stories, strange stories, of people who looked too long into the flame and came back changed, eyes wide, whispering truths they couldn't explain. But as a force that unravels, deceives, and tempts the world to forget the path of light, and only the fire could show the way through the darkness without leading us astray. One traveler claimed the fire showed him a city of mirrors beneath the earth, where every soul is weighed not by sin, but by thought, by the direction of the mind. Another said she saw a faceless being step out of the flame, not God, not demon, just something aware, something ancient, something that had waited to be seen. Zoroaster warned of Angor Mainyu, the destructive spirit. Not as a devil, in his vision, life was a battlefield. Every choice a sword, every lie a wound, and yet the fire is not always kind. But by fire, a final purification, where the wicked burn and the righteous walk unharmed. Some ancient texts speak of flames that refused to die, even after water. Wind and stone were thrown upon them, they burned, blue, silent, watching. In one ruined temple outside Balkh, Afghanistan, locals speak of a fire that roared without sound for 3 nights, then vanished, leaving behind glass-like ash. A goat herder claimed to see a man inside the blaze, not screaming, not burning, just standing, wrapped in robes, staring back without eyes, without flesh. In Yazd, one priest claimed the fire dreams. He said it remembers the faces of every soul who stood before it, and will speak again when the last one returns. There is an old belief that the end of the world will come not by flood or war. The flame does not forget, and somewhere, in the shadows behind its light, something watches back. The Zendavesta, one of the oldest sacred texts, tells of Saoshyant, a messianic figure who will rise, lead the final battle, and bathe the earth in molten truth. Where water once flowed through sacred streets, and gods walked in silence beneath the stars. And so the fire remains, burning quietly, judging silently, waiting patiently, even as the world forgets the prophets, the temples, the names. In the next chapter, we descend into the forgotten temples of the Indus Valley. Chapter 3. The Silent Gods of the Indus. Before the cries of pharaohs echoed through the Nile, before Sumerian kings carved laws into stone, there was a land of perfect symmetry and perfect silence, the Indus Valley. From the dust of present-day Pakistan and northwest India rose a civilization vast, ordered, and hauntingly quiet, its bricks aligned, its drains flawless, its gods unknown, no ziggurats, no temples, no palaces, no kings. Just cities, hundreds of them, planned in grids, their walls lined with wells and granaries, their homes arranged by the stars, yet no one knows their names. They left no Rosetta Stone, no epic of war. Only seals, burned tablets, and symbols we cannot read. But we have their ghosts, and tonight, we walk with them. They lived 4,000 years ago, yet their cities were more advanced than some built 1,000 years later, brick by brick, aligned by purpose and precision. They had covered drains, waste systems, even public baths, not for royalty, but for everyone, a civilization where hygiene was holy and water sacred. Their cities were silent engines, no idols, no inscriptions boasting of kings, only grids, purity, and shadows cast by towers whose purpose we still debate. The great bath of Mohenjo-daro, sunken, lined with baked bricks, may have been for rituals, purification, or something older, something we do not yet understand. A statue was found there, a priest or a god, half-lidded eyes, robed shoulders, lips pressed closed, watching from a time that left no voice behind, and the eyes that seem to follow you through time. He is often called the Priest King, but we have no proof of priesthoods nor kings, only the silence. They built with purpose, bricks of perfect size, all in ratio, across cities miles apart, as if they followed a sacred rule, a math that came from heaven. And scattered through it all, the seals, hundreds of them, carved in steatite, marked with horned beasts, strange creatures, and symbols no one alive can read. They depict unicorns, tigers, and beings with many arms, some seated in yogic pose, figures that some believe could be early versions of Shiva. But there are no altars, no shrines, no offerings left behind. Whatever was sacred to them, it left no footprints, only images, only ghosts. One seal shows a creature with 3 faces, surrounded by animals, eyes closed, legs folded, an image scholars call Proto-Shiva, or the Lord of Beasts. But is it a god? A king? A dream carved into stone? We don't know. Not a single sentence of their writing has been understood. No key, no bilingual translation, just symbols, floating in dust, meaning everything. Or nothing. They used more than 400 distinct signs, found on pottery, seals, and copper plates, but the language behind them remains buried beneath centuries of silence. Some believe they use Proto-Dravidian roots. Others say it's lost entirely, a language that died when the river dried, or when the gods took back their voice. And still the seals remain, cold, unbroken. In one ruined home, archaeologists found a figurine, a dancer, poised on one leg, head tilted, hand raised, cast in bronze by someone with delicate, perfect skill. Her face bears no fear, only grace, and she stands as if frozen mid-ritual, mid-offering, mid-memory, her eyes still holding the heat of vanished fire. She is called the Dancing Girl, but who did she dance for? What rhythm did she follow? What gods did she please? The wells run deep beneath Mohenjo-daro, some descend 40 feet, lined with rings of brick untouched by time, still holding the scent of something sacred, a belief we can only guess. Water for them was more than survival, it was spirit, a mirror. Perhaps even a god, the element that connected above and below, the body and the unseen. No records remain to tell us their myths, no creation story, no flood, no fire, yet their entire world was shaped by belief. At Lothal they built a dockyard, precise, massive, aligned with tidal flows. Evidence they traded far and wide, perhaps with Mesopotamia, perhaps beyond. One never proven, yet whispered, that the gods of Indus never vanished, but were folded into Vedic lore, renamed, rewritten, reimagined. Seals found in Mesopotamia match those of the Indus, proof they carried their silent gods across seas, whispered them through markets, bartered in forgotten tongues. But from water and stone, shaped by people who needed no hymns to believe. One seal found in Sumer bears an Indus script, unreadable still, beside a symbol of 2 figures locked in an embrace, perhaps divine, perhaps forbiddance. There is a theory that Shiva, Indra, even Devi, began here nameless and raw, born not from verse, but if true, why was their language lost? Why no temples? Why no statues grand enough to rival Egypt, Sumer, or Babylon? Some say they believed gods lived in the natural, that sacredness needed no walls, and so they worshipped in wells, in trees, in baths, and stars. Others believe they fled, that disaster struck, a drought, an invasion, that the Sarasvati River dried, and with it their gods turned to dust and silence. One ruined site shows a layer of ash, buildings collapsed, bodies burned, not war, but perhaps sacrifice, or plague or something stranger we dare not name. There are no mass graves, no signs of conquest, only abandonment, as if the people walked away quietly, leaving fires burning, seals scattered, prayers half spoken. A body was found near Calibangan, buried face down, arms spread, surrounded by red pigment, and a copper blade pressed gently between the ribs. No tombstone, no words, just red dust. Who were they offering to? Why so silent? Their civilization stretched over 1.2 million square kilometers, more than ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia combined, yet we still don't know what they called themselves. We call them Indus, we call them Harappans, but these are names we gave them, not what they gave themselves, not what their gods whispered when the stars began to fall. Some believe the silence is the answer, that these people did not fear forgetting, because their gods lived in things that never needed names to endure. The rains. The rivers, the fire, the moon, all watched them, all listened, and maybe all still remember. In the quiet back rooms of museums, their seals lie in drawers, unopened, untranslated, each one a locked door, each one a voice waiting for the right dream to return. Linguists stare at symbols for decades. Some swear they see patterns, sounds, even grammar, but the code never breaks and the gods stay silent. There is one seal found in Dalavira that shows 7 figures standing beneath a crescent moon, all with empty faces, all holding fire. No one knows what it means. Some say it is a ceremony, others say it is a warning, or perhaps an invitation to remember, to return, to hear the gods again. In the next chapter, we journey west to the shattered lands of Canaan, where clay tablets speak of forgotten deities, serpents of fire, and the god who once had a wife. Chapter 4, the book Gods of the Forgotten North. In the cold, wet lands of northern Europe, where fog drifts low and the trees whisper secrets, something ancient hides beneath the moss and mud, not bones of kings, not weapons of war, but bodies, whole bodies, laid gently into bogs, preserved for thousands of years by peat, silence, and something older than memory. The people who buried them believed in gods that have no names now. They didn't write books. They didn't carve grand temples. They offered blood and breath and silence. The gods of the bog did not live in the sky. They lived in water, in trees, in the deep green stillness between worlds. And they were hungry. Across Denmark, Ireland, Germany, and the Netherlands, bodies have been found lying face down in the peat. Their skin dark and smooth, their eyes closed. Some still wearing rings or cloaks, others bound with rope like gifts. One man had his throat cut, then was placed carefully in the water, a stick beside him like an offering. Another, a woman, had her hair braided, her hands folded, a silk scarf around her neck. Some still had stomachs full of seeds, a final meal eaten before the silence. We call them bog bodies. But to those who placed them there, they were something more, offerings, gifts to gods we cannot name. The Celts believed the land was alive. Forests had spirits, rivers held voices, and the bogs were gates, places where this world met the next. They believed some places needed balance, life in exchange for life, peace bought with blood, and sometimes the gods demanded more than animals. In ancient texts, Roman writers described Celtic rituals. They spoke of human sacrifice, of druids chanting in the mist. They said kings were offered to the gods when crops failed or when plagues came. Others did not. Some showed signs of careful burial, others of violence. The Romans feared these practices, but they also respected them, called the druids wise, called the rituals powerful. In the bogs, the truth is still hidden, wrapped in moss, guarded by time. One had his nipples cut, a sign, scholars say, of kingship. Some believe these people were criminals, punished. Others say they were honored, chosen to walk into the next life as messengers. To harm it was to break the land's balance. Some had broken bones. In Tolland, Denmark, a man was found with a rope still around his neck. Yet his face looked peaceful, as if he had fallen asleep. He had been placed with care, his body curled, his mouth closed gently. He is over 2,000 years old. Perhaps they were travelers, guides between this world and the next. And still, we do not know his name. In Ireland, 2 young men were found in separate bogs. In ancient Irish law, a true king's body was sacred. Another with food, weapons, and pieces of gold. Had they been kings who failed? Or were they sacrifices made to restore the land? The Pea preserved their secrets, but only partway. Clues remain, but no answers. The bog gods took what was given, and left silence in return. In some places, wooden idols have been found beside the bodies. Carved figures with wide eyes and twisted limbs, watching, waiting. One was buried with dozens of spears. In wind, in the hush before a storm. Perhaps these were not victims. Their gods did not need temples. Their gods did not need names. They needed only stillness, and fear, and loyalty. In the misty lowlands, people whispered of spirits that lived in the ground, ones that punished the greedy, or protected the harvest. Children were warned not to wander too far, not to speak near the bog's edge. The gods were always listening. As Christianity spread, these rituals faded, but the bogs did not forget. Even today, farmers find bones, rings, and tools as they cut peat. Some stop working. Some offer a quiet prayer. They say the land remembers. And not everything buried is truly dead. The gods of the bog may be nameless, but they are not gone. They linger in roots. And when the mist grows thick and footsteps vanish in the moss, they watch, waiting for another gift. In the next chapter, we journey to the fire temples of Zoroaster, where flames have burned for thousands of years, and silence holds the secrets of light and shadow. Stay close. The forgotten are never far. Chapter 5, Gods of Fire and Salt. Long before maps were drawn, before compasses turned, before sails split the sky, the ocean was a god, and the fire beneath the earth was its brother. Across the scattered bones of the Pacific, from Hawaii to Easter Island, from Samoa to the Marquesas, people carved lives on waves and prayed to gods of wind and flame. There was Pele, goddess of volcanoes, Kanaloa, the deep one, Tangaroa, father of fish, and many more, names spoken only in whispers. Their altars were stone circles near the shore, their temples were open to the sky, and their gods were never silent. But now, only the wind remembers. The ocean never sleeps. It stirs beneath stars, grumbling with the voice of something ancient, something vast, a god that cannot be chained, named, or fully known. To the Polynesians, the sea was not a place, it was a being living and breathing with moods and hunger, watching always, waiting often. They built canoes not just for travel, but for offerings, gifts cast into the depths with songs, with shells, with whispers, all in hopes the sea would allow safe passage. In Hawaii, they feared Pele, not a goddess of love, but of fire, rage, creation, the spirit of lava who shaped the land and could unmake it with a single breath. Her home was Halema Umayu, the crater that smoked and hissed, and those who angered her faced firestorms, earthquakes, and floods of burning stone. Legend says she once walked the island in disguise, a crone in rags, begging for help, and those who turned her away found their homes buried in molten rock. Locals still leave her offerings, flowers, food, strands of hair, placed near blackened rocks, in silence, eyes downcast, hearts trembling. She is not forgotten, but others are. On Rapa Nui, Easter Island, towering statues stare at the sea with hollow eyes, their makers gone, their gods unnamed, their stories broken by time. The moai, carved from volcanic rock, were once symbols of ancestor worship, bodies that stood watch, spirits that bridged life and death, facing inward to protect. But some were toppled, others left unfinished. It is said a god grew angry, make, the creator, the birdman, whose voice was drowned when the forests fell, and the islanders turned on one another. The birdman cult rose from that silence, a strange, secretive faith where warriors competed to claim an egg from a sacred cliff, risking death for divine favor. Winners were blessed, losers were forgotten. On the outer reefs of Micronesia, fishermen once told of Nero, the spider god, who spun the world from a shell and set the stars with strands of light. He was not worshipped in temples. He was called upon at night, under open skies, with drums and chants. His stories passed through mouths, never written, never owned, and so they faded. On the island of Samoa, stories spoke of Tagaloa, a sky father, a creator who shaped humans from red clay and breathed life through shells. His shrines were simple, stones arranged like hands, and to anger him meant famine, storm, or plague from the sea. But as missionaries came, churches rose. The stones were tossed into the waves, and the old chants were forbidden. Yet in secret, elders still spoke his name, tracing his mark in sand with walking sticks, warning children never to whistle at night, for that was when spirits moved. In Tonga, the god Tangaloa was said to live in a floating island, invisible, shifting, watching, and his priests could summon winds with a single word. The rituals are mostly lost now, but once they danced in darkness, painted in ash, whispering to the tides, fearing a god who gave fish, and sometimes took children. There is a chant from Fiji, now nearly forgotten, a song sung before storms, asking the sea not to swallow the village, not to steal the breath of sleeping babies. It ends with a single note, held long, soft, fading into silence, like the memory of the gods themselves. In Papua New Guinea, some tribes believed volcanoes were alive, sleeping giants whose anger could only be eased with sacrifice, and a chieftain who gave his daughter to the fire, asking the mountain to spare his people. One tale tells of a mountain that groaned at night, its breath hot, its tears steam. When they found her bones, they were fused with glass, black, sharp, shining, and the ground did not shake again for 100 years. The missionaries came with books, with sermons. With crosses, they said there was only one God. That fire was not sacred, that the sea was not alive. And slowly the drums fell silent, the altars crumbled. The names were swallowed by salt and wind, but some stories linger. In Hawaii, tourists still report strange women on roads, barefoot, dressed in white or red, who vanish when ignored and curse those who mock her. They say it is Peel, still walking, still watching. In Tonga, sailors claim lights appear on waves during the solstice, blue flames that dance without source, and nets come back full of fish after weeks of hunger. They do not ask why. They just say the gods were fed. On certain nights in the islands of Vanuatu, villagers still gather near sacred banyan trees, offering kava in bowls of coconut, speaking to ancestors who never left. And the wind listens, and sometimes it replies. In Samoa, a grave marked only by shells lies beside an old church. They say a high priest is buried there, the last to speak the old names aloud. Children dare each other to touch the shells. Few do, for even forgotten gods can whisper. Even buried spirits can remember. And even the sea has memory when the waves crash in silence, when the ground rumbles beneath a sleeping volcano, when birds fall quiet and the wind holds its breath, something stirs. It may not have a name, it may not wear a crown, but it watches. And in the fire and salt, it waits. In the next chapter, we walk the forgotten temples of Mesopotamia, land of stars, ziggurats, and vanished heavens, where gods once ruled and then fell silent. Chapter 6. The gods who fell from the sky long ago. In a place called Sumer, people believe their gods came down from the sky, not from earth, sea, or wind, but from stars that burned forever. Before the pyramids, before empires, the people of Sumer built cities of clay and towers of mud, hoping the gods would return to walk among them. They carved prayers into clay tablets and placed them inside temples. These temples weren't small. They were tall, built like stairways to the sky. At the top, priests stood in silence, waiting for a sign, a whisper, a shadow, anything. Anu was the sky god. He was quiet, distant. His temple in Uruk shone in the sun, but he rarely answered the calls from below. When Anu did come, the world shook. Mountains trembled, a great one. He said the people were too noisy, too proud, so he washed the world away. Winds cried. And priests fell to their knees in fear. His son Enlil was different. He was the god of storms, angry, loud, wild. He ruled over air and sent winds that tore through homes and fields. Once, Enlil sent a flood. Only one man survived. His name was Ziusudra. He built a boat, filled it with life, and floated until the waters fell back into the earth. Inanna died. But after 3 days, she returned, changed, stronger, and colder. Each planet's move meant something: war, sickness, or change. Step by step, each level meant to rise closer to the sky. No signs, no voices, no dreams. But they turned their eyes away from the rest. The gods saved him. They claimed to speak for them, to act through them. But when the gods stopped speaking, kings fell. Inanna was the goddess of love and war. She was powerful, fierce, and beautiful. Her temples were filled with both perfume and blood. One tablet read, "Oh God I know, and God I do not know. Do not turn from me." She went to the underworld once, walking through 7 gates, giving up her power one piece at a time until she was bare and still, statues cracked. People whispered, unsure if the gods were angry or leaving, called themselves divine. Built great walls, great cities, then watched them fall into sand and ash. Her lover, the seasons began, the cycle of going and returning, of sacrifice and rebirth. There she faced Ereshkigal, goddess of death. She traded someone's life for her own. The ziggurats, temple towers, were built for these gods. Priests walked barefoot, carrying incense and prayers, hoping a god might hear, might answer, or simply notice. Some return in dreams that linger after waking, but many shrines stood empty, silent, waiting. The sky was their map. The stars were their signs. Or towers, they wait in dust, in wind. In the space between thoughts, they need shadows and memory. The Babylonians watched closely. If a planet moved wrong or vanished, they prepared for the worst. Sometimes the gods were quiet. That silence was the loudest warning of all. Of dreams that felt like memories they'd never lived. Kings ruled only if the gods approved. Old prayers asked for help from gods they no longer remembered. Even then, names faded. Statues broke. Towers crumbled. Lightning struck temples. Some thought they were changing into something else. Something humans couldn't understand. New rulers rose. Sargon, Hammurabi, Gilgamesh, great kings, great stories. All gone, ziggurats remained, empty, dusty, their stairs leading nowhere. In Uruk they found songs carved into clay. Songs to forgotten gods, cries written before the fires came. One said, "Let the sky open again. Let the stars hear our voices. Let the gods see we have not forgotten, but the sky stayed dark." Temples became homes, then ruins, then dust. New gods arrived, old gods faded, but not all were lost. In Nippur, a statue was found buried upside down, as if someone feared its eyes, even in stone. In nearby villages, people left bowls of milk outside their doors, not for animals, but for something older. Shepherds in the hills spoke of tall shadows with silver eyes. Some of the names they whispered matched those on ancient tablets. The stars, it seems, did not forget. When Jupiter pauses too long, when Saturn rises where it should not, when Venus vanishes, the old feelings return. The gods are not gone, just hidden. Some sleep in stories. Some move through ruins when the last person forgets their name. That is when they come closest. They wait for silence. They grow in stillness. They don't need temples. The gods who fell from the sky never truly left. And when the sky seems too quiet, when sleep won't come, listen, for the gods might rise again. This was the final chapter. But the night is long, and the gods are never truly silent. Please like and subscribe to our channel, Relic of Stories. Stay tuned for more forgotten myths, ancient horrors, and voices from the past.